So if you're on my Facebook fan page, which you should be, there's a link in the description box below. I recently posed a question for you guys to ask me questions. Basically ask me questions about either myself in gaming or gaming related questions in general, so that way I can make interesting videos for you guys. So I'll probably do one of these once a week or so, just depends on, how many interesting questions I get. The first question I've decided to answer is from my buddy Jeremy Stubbs, aka Jerps93. I'll put a link to his channel in the description box below, and he asked a very interesting question. He asked, will GameStop go out of business soon? And that's a question that actually got me thinking, and actually got me wanting to research things such as, GameStop as a company, how their financials look. So I guess with this question, I do have a little insight because I was an assistant manager back in 2005 for GameStop, and I have a video chronicling that whole thing. I'll put a link to that on the screen somewhere if you want to check that out after this video. Now, I remember in 2005, GameStop was going through some changes. The main changes were that the store I worked at actually had retro stuff, and they were phasing that out. There was N64 stuff, Super Nintendo stuff, Genesis stuff, and it was all like 2 for 1 because they were getting rid of that. They were getting away from that model. But the more important thing was the PC gaming. You see, PC gaming used to have physical releases, and around 2005, they started phasing that out as well. PC games weren't getting released on physical media anymore because of a change pretty much with PC gaming. See, I don't think PC gaming was ever about collecting. It was always more about just the games. And since you had these massive hard drives, you could just download the game and there was much better discounts and stuff. There wasn't really an advantage unless you liked collecting the boxes for a physical release on the PC. So we were phasing out PC stuff. It was all marked down and that was it. That was the end of brick and mortar PC gaming. But I don't think PC gamers really minded because it wasn't a big deal to them. They just wanted the games and they were much readily available on the internet, especially with the rise of high-speed internet around that time. Pretty much everyone started getting it. So the GameStop business model is always changing. They're always changing things up, and you can even look at the rise of digital to their current business model, especially with home consoles. You see, a lot of people are getting their games on home consoles through digital market space because they all have stores, the eShop, the PSN network, the Xbox One, whatever they call it. They all have these digital stores where you can get games for usually cheaper sometimes, and there's always sales and indie games and whatnot. So it really changed the game up. And I think that's why a lot of people think GameStop will go out of business soon. Soon is subjective, next 5 to 10 years, because look at all these other companies that are, going out of business. Hastings just went out of business. Kmart's about to go under. Circuit City, of course, went out of business. So these stores, these big, huge chain stores are starting to go under because of the rise of online buying, and video games is a big part of that. But I don't think GameStop is going to go out of business anytime soon, just because they've actually been adapting. You have to look at new things that they've included. Now, online, they've started selling retro games, and even though I'm very against buying retro games from them because there's been, tons of fakes and all sorts of crazy stuff, that is a market that they are now focusing on. So that's, going to help their bottom line, because at the end of the day, GameStop makes money from sales of used games. That's a huge portion of their money. That's where most of their money comes in. So that's why they always push you to get a used copy of the game, because you got to think of it like this. If you trade in a game and it's $30 and they give you $30 and they sell it for $50, it's $20 profit right there. They're not getting that on new games. New games are usually sold for, $1 or $2 profit. And that's why they have, the gameplay guarantees and reward cards and all that shit, because that's, additional income. But you also have to look at the store itself. A GameStop nowadays is not just about video games. There's, toy sections, there's Funko Pop figures, there's Amiibo, there's t-shirts, there's cell phones, there's tablets. They've really expanded their business model to just go beyond gaming. So that's really been helping them. And I actually decided to look at some numbers. And since 2011, GameStop's gross profit has been rising steadily. In 2011, it was at $2.5 billion, which is an astronomical number. But in 2015, they were at $2.94 billion. So they're almost at a $3 million gross profit, and it's steadily rising. All of their numbers have been rising since 2011, more than likely because of the shift in the business model, because they're not just gaming anymore. It's nerd culture, it's cell phones, it's tablets, it's, devices and stuff like that. So is GameStop going to go out of business anytime soon? I say no, because really they are a one-of-a-kind store, whether we like it or not. There's always going to be mom and pop shops and, one-off, individual proprietorships, but there's no more video game chains. There's no more, unless you live in Canada where GameStop is known as EB Games. EB Games was a separate entity. There's no more EB Games, Babbage's, Funcoland, Software, etc. All those stores, even if you lived in the Southeast, there was a great store called Rhino that GameStop bought out. That was a smaller chain. GameStop is a one-of-a-kind store because no other store is games in the name. That's as simple as that. I mean, you could buy games at Best Buy and whatnot, but their used selection is always much smaller compared to GameStop. So is GameStop going to go out of business soon? No. Although the digital market is impacting things, you got to remember, Super Smash Bros. Was the most successful digital release on both the 3DS and the Wii U, and Nintendo reported that only sold 15% digitally. 85% of those sales were actually from physical releases. EA and Activision have both gone on record as stating that only 8% of their total game sales are digital. 92% are still physical. So unless these companies just stop making physical games and the only way to buy them is digital, GameStop's going to be around for a long time. Let me know what you think about this question in the comment section below. Like I said, make sure you like my Facebook page so that you can be entered to, ask me a question, and I'll try to do one of these once a week. Thank you for liking the video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time on Ask RGT 85. Later.